this is the next episode. So luckily we found a crank upstairs and it's in quite good nick, but there isn't a piston, so we're going to have to use this piston and just clean up these little dings. But of course the first thing we've got to do is take the piston, this piston, off this worn out crank. Now if you look at the Stihl 026 repair videos, you'll see that just down in there, and this is quite tricky with still attached to the crank but the crank floating, but just in there there's a little wire circlip. There we are. And there's one either end of the piston, but what we need to do is just remove one so we can push the gudgeon pin out. Now the gudgeon pin's a tight fit in the piston, so if you remember last time, this is where the blowtorch comes in. So that's good and hot now, smoking hot, and this is where you burn your fingers and do all sorts of things. So the end with the circlip in wants to be uppermost, which is this end, and let's just see, let's just tap it. There we go. That piston will still be mighty warm. But there's the gudgeon pin. All very hot and nasty. So once things have cooled down a bit, the piston's still warm. So on this one, what we need to do is we need to free the rings off. Now, it's not as if it's been seized, but just here there's a bit of aluminium that seems to have been pushed over the ring. So the thing to do there is get a craft knife to it. So whilst the piston's still a bit warm, this might work easier. So we just need to scrape the ring groove free of that loose aluminium. Just like that. That's just where that little bit of something just knocked into the groove. All we want to do is just free off the rings. So then we go round to the gap, and we want to ease this ring out very gently. We don't want to break it, or else we're onto a hiding for nothing. Let's get that one. See if we can get that one moving a bit. They will break very, very easily, so you've got to be incredibly careful. And the problem being, seems to be trapped there. So I think we're going to have to resort to a bit more heat on this. So you just try and rock it backwards and forwards. So we broke one ring, unfortunately. It was just too tight in there, and the other ring's alright. So the thing to do is to just use a bit of broken ring and scrape out the ring groove, just so that the rings will run nicely in there, just like that, and just make sure that they fit properly, especially where there's that little scrape there. Just check it so that it sits there nicely, and if you need to do a little bit of minor engineering, then do so. You see, that fits quite nicely there. Just scrape it out, just so it all fits properly. Now, I know that doing this with a craft knife is a bit agricultural, but let's just assume you're 150 miles from anywhere, or 150 miles away from the next lot of spares, and you want to go to work tomorrow. So you do the best you can, and if it means using a craft knife to do some delicate aluminium carving to free the rings off, even if it takes you an hour, yeah, it's dark outside, what else are you going to do? You're in a caravan in the woods, clean the ring out, clean it all back up, sort the problem out, put it back together. Yeah, if you've got a busted crank, obviously it's a waste of time. But there you go, you know. So I can hear people go, "You can't do that." Well, of course you can. Yeah, you know, standards and standards. It's a means to the end. So the cranks. Right. We've got quite a difference here. This one here is the crank that goes with this piston, and that's the worn out one. But the rod is really quite nice. It's a drop forged rod, etc. But this is the one that's given up. The crank off, which I suspect is an earlier machine, is stamped, and the gudgeon pin needle roller will come out of this one, and on this one it looks like it's fixed. So to my mind this is a weaker rod, so I'm going to have to bear that in mind. And the thing is that we've got two cylinders, and I found the other piston, so that's the cylinder for that one, and this is the cylinder. Right, let's get these cranks the right way around. That lot goes there, this lot, and that piston goes there. Now, the beauty of digital vernier calipers, absolutely amazing. Let's just have a look. That piston is 39.8. That's 38.8, and that way it's 39.8. Front to back's 39.8. This piston, front to back, is 42. So there's more cc, bigger piston. As long as the offset on the crank is the same, this is more cc. So I think that we're going to go with a smaller piston to go with a slightly weaker rod. And we've got the cylinder for it, so that'll be alright. So with this piston, let's just get rid of a few things. So with this piston, the main thing to do, the main wear points on a piston are the front skirt, and that's 2.12, and the rear skirt is 1.8. I've actually seen it where the front skirt, is it the front? Let me just get this right. No, I got that wrong. Look at it this way. That's the front of the piston. So as the explosion happens, or the very quick burn, the crank goes round like that, and because we're pushing sideways like that, the thrust is on the rear of the piston, which is why when you measure a piston, sometimes the rear skirt will be slightly thinner than the front, and that's why that's where the wear is, because this is pushing that way, and equal and opposite reaction means that within the bore is pushing on this rear face here. So the wears, and I've actually seen it where the skirt has got very, very thin, and the engine wasn't running dead right, and when you just turned it over very gently without starting it, you got to the top and you could hear it go pink as the piston just rocked. So that piston's not bad. There's not a load of wear on the skirt. So when people go, oh, I had to have a new piston in that sort, the piston was worn out, yeah, it's true. Yeah. So that's the ring. Now on the rings, again, the wear point, you can see sometimes that the front bit of the ring is a lot thinner than the sides or the rear. Now let's just see if we can do this. That's 1.71. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. This 1.63. Well, that says 1.6. So I'd say that's reasonably even. Maybe just a slight bit of wear, but that'll do fine. So we're going to use the earlier crank with a slightly smaller diameter piston and the appropriate cylinder, just because we don't want to put more cc through a slightly weaker crank. So that's it for this session, and more exciting interventions later.